welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am your host, Courtney Anderson. Thank you for joining me. Today's show is really interesting. Our topic is part of our Help Situation Spotlight series. And of course, our Help Situation Spotlight series is built all around community members. That's you or anyone that I interact with, at an educational training program, at a keynote speech, online that sends in a question or a concern or a topic idea, and I just compile all the different things that I've heard, that I'm currently hearing, and try to come up with some suggestions to be of assistance. Of course, our goal is always helping to ensure that we are surpassing our goals. So today, our specific episode topic is, my work makes me happy. I love my job too much. Am I crazy? So it's interesting because I did a show relatively recently, and it was the opposite topic. It was sort of, I hate my job. And it's interesting because I have had a lot of feedback over the years on that side of the equation. We have the individual, we have their professional endeavor, and then we've got sort of the polar opposites of emotional reaction. And so some people say, I hate it, it's miserable, this job is the most yucky job in the world, it sucks, woo. And then other people on the other end of the spectrum say, what our topic is today, and they say, my work makes me happy. I love my job. I love coming to work. I love my job too much. I'm excited before I even go to sleep because I know I'm going to wake up and get to go back to my work. I just love it. Am I crazy? And I think sometimes we spend way too much time, and we're not balanced in approaching these two different sort of polar opposites. And I don't necessarily have conclusive scientific evidence that there's sort of an even distribution of people who sort of are the far end of the spectrum and despise their job. The people I talk to sometimes, and they'll say to me, I just, even when I leave, where I live, my place, and I get on the bus, or my car, and I start coming here, my stomach hurts, I feel physically sick, I'm going to throw up, I just hate it. Okay, so that's the one group, right? One end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is a group that's like, I love it. I love my job. I love it too much. It makes me so happy. And again, I don't know if scientifically these are sort of evenly distributed among populations. Yet, there is evidence, and I'm certainly convinced of this, that both groups do exist. There's the group that absolutely is, physically ill when they think about their job. A lot of people in that group say to me, I get so depressed every Friday. And I'm like, well, why? Normally Friday, is, thank goodness it's Friday, TGIF. What's going on? And they'll say to me, no, I get sad because I know it'll be Saturday and Sunday, and I'm happy because I'm not here. But then I dread that Monday is going to come around again, and I'm already sad because I know Friday means that Monday's coming. Okay. And then again, the other group is so super fired up about their jobs. They love it. They're there super early. They stay late. It just makes them feel so good. Part of the challenge is, how do these two groups sort of coexist? But specifically for our show topic today, if you're in that group where you really do, you love what you do, you love it, you're sad on Friday because you don't get to come to work on Saturday or Sunday, assuming you have a sort of a work week like that. And let's talk to that group. I do think they're actually a bit misunderstood, and I also think they get a lot of negative peer pressure. And so I want to lay out at the beginning of this episode that if this is a help situation spotlight, what can we do to help? My first response to the group that absolutely loves what they do, they feel happy about it, they look forward to it, they're fired up and eager and excited. My first response to them is, congratulations. Congratulations. I'm clapping. Congratulations. You've sort of, won the lottery. That's kind of the all of this science and adult education is all around, finding what you love. How can you find something that you love? How can you figure out what your career should be? How do you know what you want to do when you grow up? And there's just so much in this, right? What color is your parachute? And all there's so many different diagnostic tools and quizzes and the idea is to try to help you understand yourself so you can go out and find that thing that you actually are, excited about. So the people who have found that thing, congratulations. You're in the enviable position of the person who has found their match. It's almost like, an analogy. It's almost like talking to somebody and they're like, you know what? I love my relationship. I love it. Woo! My spouse is awesome. I'm happy. I'm happy around them. I'm happy when I think about them, and when I'm away from them, I'm happy because I know I'll get to see them again soon, and I just feel good, and they're always so positive and supporting, and it's just great. There's nothing better than being in this relationship. Now, again, most of us would say congratulations, right? I'm clapping again, wow. So we are not talking about all of this other industry, right? Built up around, counseling and communication skills and, can this relationship be saved? And, is it you? Is it them? Are they just not into you? Should you change? It's just, forget all that. You're in the place. You're in that place and that relationship where you're happy and they're happy and you feel satisfied and excited and you're thrilled, to be part of it. Again, congratulations. Yet, our programs are all about pragmatism and looking at the world as it is. And the reality is that when you're in these groups, and again, I don't have data on hand to support this, but my assumption would be that either there's a small group of people that feel that they have met their sort of perfect match for work or their perfect match in their real life, or if it's an equally distributed group of the group that's miserable and unhappy and racked with pain and in need of incredible intervention and assistance, then the happy group just keeps their mouth shut and they keep a low profile so that not so many people know that they exist, because you do tend to read more, see more, and hear more about people in distress. Part of that is, of course, if you're someone who's really happy and excited, you're probably not going to invest in, a lot of resources. You're not going to be out there like, I need a self-help book. I need to improve my communication. I need to learn about who's from Venus and Mars. I need to better understand, my language of love. I need to better understand, my workplace profile. They're not doing all of that because they're happy. So maybe it's a situation where that group is, somewhat roughly equal to the group that's miserable, but you just see less, media, resources, books, discussion about it, because people who are there really don't need anything or want anything to, quote, fix it. They're in the place. They've made a little nirvana at their work or their personal life. And so maybe it's that the groups, again, are somewhat roughly equally distributed, but the group that's so happy doesn't really need much, so you don't see a lot of people writing books or talking about it in the media or having dialogue about it, because what do you do other than say congratulations? So again, if you're in this group and your work makes you happy, you should be proud of that. That is awesome. And you are very, very fortunate, and you should have, my personal opinion, quite a bit of gratitude that you're in this wonderful situation. Now, as I often share in so many different programs, I'm not necessarily one who believes that you just get lucky, meaning some people, go to sleep at night and they wake up and their job is horrible and the people are mean and, their customers are ridiculous and everybody is an idiot and it's horrible. And then other people just go to bed and wake up and, like magic, they go to their job and it's wonderful and they feel respected and well compensated and they enjoy their work and they feel that it's, interesting and all of this. I don't think it's random. I do think that there's a lot of different choices and decisions that we make when we talk about outcomes, which is, of course, one of the foundations of all of the different programs that I do and services I provide professionally. When we talk about outcomes, there's a lot of different things that we can do to get into the position where we actually are, where we think we want to be and where we feel all of this positive feedback, right? I feel emotionally happy. I love what I do. I'm excited to go there. I feel respected and I feel that my opinions matter. I feel that I'm well compensated. The work fits my personality. It fits my commute. That's a great position to be in. And again, this is not the person who will say something like, yeah, my job's all right. It's okay. I'm not, unhappy, but I do have that 2-hour commute, and I also have a really serious problem where my last evaluation, I felt it was biased, because my supervisor wanted their new girlfriend to get the job position. So whenever somebody starts saying something like that, that's not the person who really does love their job. That's the person who's like, yeah, I'm not, screaming out in misery or, throwing up every time I have to go to the job, but I'm not really happy. And they'll start to tell you pretty much immediately what the issues are that are causing them to be less than satisfied. So for those people who are in that situation, they are happy, pretty much. Now, nothing's ever perfect. When you talk to people, even people who are really excited and happy and fired up, and when you really start talking to them, they'll start to share some things that either they want improved, or they'll say things like, I really love it, and I'm so excited. Sometimes I put so much pressure on myself because I have, a goal for the next quarter, and I really want to make sure I do my best. They'll say stuff like that, but it really is not a negative. It might be something that they're anxious about or excited to see what happens, but they really are in that sweet spot where they feel all of their tools and talents that are important to them, not all of their tools and talents, but all their tools and talents that are important to them in that setting are recognized. So what are some of the things that we can do to help people in this situation? The first part is, after we've congratulated them, reminded them that they, in my opinion, should be appreciative and grateful, not necessarily to anyone else, but certainly appreciative that they're in such a healthy position and aware that other people aren't and suffer from that. I think one of the things that in the show topic we asked is, the person says, am I crazy? Am I crazy that I love my job? Am I crazy that I'm so excited and happy? No, you're not. Just like I would argue to somebody, and certainly the majority of my personal relationship experience has come professionally, obviously, from all of the different people I've worked with who were in divorces or child custody disputes or paternity disputes or property disputes over relationships that didn't go well. Those people are they're not happy, and they're having to spend a lot of emotional, financial resources and time into dealing with all of the fallout and the pain. And I would argue that the person who's in a happy relationship outside, in their real lives, their most important, friends and people that they are, intimate with and emotional with, when you're in that good space, you're not crazy, but you certainly have something I think that you should, again, be very aware of, and also be aware, as I mentioned earlier, that a lot of people, my suspicion is, that actually are really happy in their jobs, they don't share that information. And again, I think just like in our regular lives, I think many times when you just are listening to people, at a public place or on a plane or the train or something, and people are talking, or in a shopping center, most people complain, right? Oh, my kids. Oh, this and that. Oh, my spouse. Oh, I can't believe them. And they just complain. And it's rare that you hear somebody that's honestly, authentically like, yeah, I really am appreciative. I think that, I'm so fortunate. What considerate family members I have, and my job is just really, exciting and interesting. You don't hear a lot of that in public culture, at least in most countries. My suspicion would be that maybe that there is a peer pressure where a lot of people who actually feel like they do love their situation, they are happy, they love their job, they don't say anything, and they actually do wonder, am I crazy? Because often when you are very enthusiastic, jubilant, and excited, and you share that, the feedback is often, especially from larger groups, it's not supportive, it's not positive. I had an anecdotal experience. I've had several, actually, over all the different years, because one of the things I've always done with my work is really think about how much my emotional return on my investment matters to me. So in other words, making money is at some level a necessity. I do need some money so that I, can get somewhere to live and pay for food and things of that nature. But sort of beyond those bare minimums, my big goal is to derive some sense of satisfaction, accomplishment, pride from my work, because it's something in my life experience I can control a lot more than I can control things in your regular life. Sort of family of origin, things of that nature. But you have a lot of control over your work. You get to pick it to a certain degree. And so one of the things I've tried to do is, if I get in a situation where I'm really not happy, then I immediately start troubleshooting. Well, what could be the problem? And I start, coming up with different suggestions and ideas for myself. Well, what other skills do you have that you could deploy to maybe do some other type of work? And then I go out and I'm constantly checking to see, what kind of job postings are out there, what kind of, independent contractor options are out there. And I still do this, because what I'm trying to do is make sure that if something happens and I'm either not able to do what I'm currently doing the way that I'd like to, or the opportunity, for some reason ceases to exist, I want to make sure that I've got something else lined up that I potentially might enjoy. And so I've worked very hard over many years to think through these questions. Am I happy? Do I like what I'm doing? And to come up with answers that work for me. I have experienced a lot of negative peer pressure whenever I've been in professional settings of groups of people and start talking about how much I like what I do. That is usually not something that people want to hear about. And again, I don't know if some of this is sort of social posturing. In other words, that people really are happy too, but they pretend like they're not, just because maybe that's a more popular position. And then whenever I start to say things about how excited I am and how much I love what I do, even though other people in a group might feel the same way, they don't ever speak up and say, "Oh yeah, me too." So I've had this happen in almost. I want to say I've had it happen in every professional area I work in. So I've certainly been around other people who are attorneys who are not happy, and who, when I've shared how excited and happy I am and all the different things I love about the legal field and about being a licensed attorney, people have said not nice things to me and not been very appreciative of my position. I've had it happen in education. Certainly I'm a very passionate and excited educator. I've had people who weren't on the same wavelength. I've had it in, as a landlord. People tell me, how and sometimes people will almost accuse me of being dishonest. It's sort of like, yeah, right, you're happy. Well, I am. I enjoy landlording because I, have found and continue to work with a fantastic group of real estate professionals, property managers and realtors, and so 99% of the work is awesome. And I've got great people to ask for questions, ask for help, and then also share their expertise and guidance with me. So it is fun. And I also think ahead. Part of it's, I am a lawyer, so I do kind of know when things fall apart what might be a trigger. So I'm pretty consistently ensuring, that the contracts are what they need to be, and that adherence to all of the, laws and codes are what they need to be, and being proactive as a business person to kind of prevent a lot of problems. It's the same thing, though, in all my other work. And I love what I do. Even motivational speaking, keynote speaking, corporate training and education programs, which is one of my favorite things to do. I've had the conversation with people in all of those fields who just are like, how can you like it? It's horrible. You have to travel, and the people, and sometimes audiences and whatever. And I'm not saying I love everything about everything. What I'm saying is that I sat and I thought about what would make me happy. And then I built my work around that. For example, we're doing an upcoming program about people who are a little bit more introverted, and maybe they're not people, right? That's one of those things that when you go do job interviews, everyone says, I'm a people person. It's a cliche. Some people really are. They're extroverts. They love people. But almost everybody says it just because everyone's used to it. And not everybody is. I'm an introvert. I've taken I don't know how many different diagnostic tools over the years. I am an introvert. That means that I like people, but being around people drains me, just emotionally. So I need to recharge. So that means if I really need a lot of strength and energy, I need to go by myself somewhere to kind of get those reserves. So when I look at my work, I try to pick work environments that allow me to have a lot of private time so that I'm able to think and be creative and be in my happiest, high energy sort of state. And then I build things around that. So I wouldn't go necessarily and say, oh my goodness gracious, I'm going to go find this job and it's going to pay me X amount of dollars, and that's a lot of money. And with that money, I can go out and get all these things, and then I'll go work at some place where I have to go, sit in a, around large amounts of people with a large amount of noise, and I have no privacy. Even though it might be a really fancy job and a great job title, even with a lot of money, that wouldn't work for me. I'd be miserable. So I sit down and prioritize what it is that makes me happiest. How do I like to work? What types of problems do I like to solve? Am I comfortable making decisions? Am I comfortable working independently? These are all the things that are part of how we figure out what makes us happy, and then we go out and create that. So when we get to somebody who says, I'm happy, am I crazy? No, and you're not unusual for wondering that, because there's a lot of negative consequence when somebody, in a group especially, starts to talk about how happy and pleased they are with their work. I have had this, again, in literally every single professional field I have ever encountered. And I authentically will start to talk about how excited or happy or pleased or, eager I am about something, and I'll get really nasty verbal comments and really nasty facial expressions from people. And I think that's a lot of why this topic is challenging. There is, I believe, a personal responsibility for each one of us to sit down and figure out. That's why I always talk about going into your own quiet place and listen to your thoughts. No matter, how you're oriented to the world, whether you're extrovert or introvert or somewhere in the middle, you need to sit quietly and ask yourself what makes you happy, and then start to build your life around those things. If you don't do that, then you're going to constantly be in situations where other people will say to you, well, you should be happy, right? Oh, you should be happy. Based on that job or working for that employer or having, that nice commute or cool chair or how much money you make or whatever. And the argument is worthless. What you should be doesn't matter. It's what makes me happy. I'm an individual. And the people who love their job, again, congratulations, you're in a fortunate position. The challenge usually with this, though, is you start to wonder, are you weird, or unstable, because you feel so positive and a lot of people feel so negative? The answer is no. Again, I don't have anywhere near conclusive data on this, but my suspicion is, work cultures are like families in all positive and negative ways. In other words, you could go to somebody's house you've never been to, and you could immediately, when the first time you set foot in their house, you get a sense of, is it tense? Is it a relaxed, kind of happy place? And you can feel the energy. And then as you meet different people, you'll get more reinforcement. If you come and you meet somebody's relatives for the first time in their house, and they're snarling, or and they won't look at you, or they come over and say, hi, it's so nice to meet you, or whatever, it gives you the energy. And it's the same thing with workplaces. That's one of the things that fascinates me, right? When I talk about all the things I do and traveling around the world and going to all these interesting workplaces, it's like going to people's houses, or it's like being an anthropologist and getting to go and explore all these little mini cultures. I just love it. And if you love your job and you're excited, you're not at all crazy, but probably if you're asking that question, you're in the wrong micro environment. In other words, there are workplaces I have personally been to, as an anecdote, and of course many that are in case studies and that are in the media, especially the business press, extolling the high energy, the enthusiasm, the high retention rates, high engagement. You need to go around other happy people, and then you won't at all feel like you stick out. You won't at all feel pressure from people who are not receptive to your high energy, enthusiasm, and passion. But you need to be around your tribe. And the challenge is, though, for people who are really happy and excited, and they're not in a place where that's sort of the dominant culture and expectation, it's very difficult for them. And over time, it'll erode their enthusiasm and passion and joy, because everybody else reacts so negatively to it. And that's the opposite of what you want. Again, that broad analogy to outside life, right? So if outside your life you feel pretty good about your personal life, you feel like the people that you count on the most, the people you trust, right, with your secrets or fears or apprehensions, are trustworthy and have integrity and respect you, and you respect them, that's great. Congratulations. Again, you need to be around other people who are similarly inclined. If you go and you expose yourself to groups of people who are miserable or unhappy, they will again give you very negative verbal feedback and body language to let you know they don't want to hear about your happiness. They don't want to hear about how nurtured and supported you feel by people in your life or your spouse. They do not want to hear that at all. So instead of putting yourself in that situation, which does cause anxiety, right? Especially the person who feels pretty good. That means you're exposed less to sort of these high pressure, high negative experiences. You don't like them. You don't need to be around it, but you're going to have to work a little bit harder to find those enclaves of people who are similarly positioned. And if you go to a workplace and pretty much the general cultural expectation is that people like it there and are excited, then you'll fit in and you'll be supported and nurtured and you'll reach even greater heights. If you take somebody, though, who's a really positive, enthusiastic person and you stick them into an environment of misery and complaints and people who are literally doing less than the bare minimum of the job but not enough to be fired, and you put them in that environment, it's just awful for everybody. The poor happy person, starts to get sad, and eventually either they just diminish their little light of joy or it snuffs out. But I'm encouraging you, if you are happy and you're not supported by, not everybody, even in the happiest, most exciting, passionate workplace, there are going to be people you don't like, you don't get along with, whatever. That's just life. But if overall there's no support, there's no way for you to feel other than just like a solitary, lonely figure of positivity, you really do need to search out and find either the different office or a different work method. Maybe you'll do distributed working where you're working in your own environment, and in that way you're not exposed to the negative people, but you've got to take control of this, otherwise it'll start to take a negative toll on you. And there's no magic wand that I'm aware of at this juncture that someone can come in and just turn somebody who's miserable and is absolutely convinced that their work, their job, their chair, their commute, their office building, their bathroom, just whatever, there's a laundry list usually of things people are miserable about. It's difficult to get into that and just fix it and have them all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, I am appreciative. Now that I think about it, this is an interesting firm. And, I might not have the chair of my dreams, but, my chair has decent padding. It's difficult to do that. And instead of the happy person converting miserable people into a little bit less miserable, what tends to happen is the poor happy person is just way outnumbered and they just shut up. And over time, they do feel less happy because they're lonely. And there's nothing as contagious, and there's so much science on this, right? Even when a smile, even when babies smile, they don't really verbalize it all, but there's just that emotional connection of that positive energy. You need to be around other people like you. You need to find your tribe. How do you do that? I think I'm going to do some more specific programs about that, but in general, you need to think about what are those things that are the most important parts of your happiness. So if you're a really big people person and you love being out and about and meeting people, you might be thrilled working in a work environment where you're, with customers all the time and it's busy and it's exciting and it's always variety, then do that. Or if you're the opposite and you know that you need a lot of quiet, you need a lot of time to just think without interruptions, you need to work in that environment, and you need to look at the ways of working that make you happy and then build backwards from that. Again, like I said earlier, it doesn't make any sense if someone is a lawyer or CPA or a car salesperson and you start thinking about the money or whatever of a job without realizing, what do you really like? Do you like a big busy place with a lot of noise? Do you like a quiet place? How you work is so much, I argue, more important than actually what you're doing in terms of your overall happiness. So within your broad area of what it is you do, find the way you can do that thing, whether it's sales or whatever, in a way that fits your personality best. And then try to find your tribe, people that you work with, whether it's in person or on virtual distributed teams or whatever, where it meets, at least broadly, some level of a positive framework. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for unhappiness, and you don't need to because you're happy. So congratulations. You are absolutely not crazy. You are very fortunate. You should have nothing but gratitude and appreciation. You do need to find other people like you. And that is going to take us some time and a little bit of effort by thinking about where would those people be. And then you need to go out and explore the world, visit, see if this is the type of setting that'll be supportive for you. And then when you find your area, you find your tribe, just be even happier and enjoy it. Just enjoy it. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, you can come to CourtneyAnderson.com. And for all of you that are really happy and excited and love your job so much, I'm so thrilled. And I'm very grateful and happy to be one of your tribe. I love what I do. I really, really do. So thank you so much.